At the beginning of the story, we see a girl named Dorothy who worked for BTH Company. Late at night, she went to meet a reporter named Melvin. It was revealed that the BTH Company had been dumping a large amount of radioactive waste into the river. Because of this, animals in the area were mutating strangely, and people were falling sick. Melvin and Dorothy decided to expose the company's crimes to the world. They planned to bring the truth out through their reports. But just then, they saw through the camera that the building had been surrounded by a gang called Killer Nutz. It was a dangerous and short-tempered gang that worked for BTH. Melvin quickly told Dorothy to run away and distracted the gang by shouting so that their attention would go toward him. He wanted Dorothy to escape. At least the evidence would reach the public. Dorothy started running, but on the staircase, gang members were already waiting. To escape, she jumped from the railing. When she landed on the ground, she realized that her hard disk had broken, and that disk contained all the evidence against the company. Meanwhile, the gang broke into Melvin's office and opened fire on him. Even when Melvin stood up, they shot him again, and when he still didn't fall, they attacked him brutally with a sharp weapon, sending him flying out the window. Outside, Dorothy was still running when Melvin's dead body fell right in front of her. Terrified, she froze and then ran away. Now we see a dwarf man named Winston. His wife had died, and now he lived with his stepson Wade, though they didn't talk much. One day while leaving home, Winston saw a rich man named Spence harassing his neighbor Daisy. Spence was forcing Daisy to sell her house. He even picked up her cat and threatened, "I'll come back later with the papers, okay? Till then, the cat stays with me." But as he was leaving, he threw the cat in the middle of the road. Winston immediately ran to save it, and just then a speeding car came. He was almost hit but narrowly escaped. Later, Wade got angry at Winston, saying, "Why didn't you help Daisy? Why didn't you do anything for her?" Winston replied, "They're rich people. What can we do against them?" Winston worked at the BTH factory as a cleaner. That day, a loud alarm was ringing and people were shouting, but he didn't pay much attention. After work, he felt unwell, so he went to the doctor. After a CT scan, the doctor said, "You have a brain tumor, and it's already in an advanced stage. You have maybe 1 year left. Surgery is impossible, and the other treatment is very expensive." Winston called his insurance company, but they refused to cover the expenses. Hearing this, Winston was completely broken. Meanwhile, Robert, the owner of the BTH company, was furious. His company's stock prices were falling, and the media was exposing that he was funding illegal gangs. People were also accusing him of dumping radioactive waste into rivers. Robert's brother, Fritz, was the company's security head and also controlled the Killer Nutz gang. When Robert saw on TV that Dorothy was still alive, he angrily smashed the screen and shouted at Fritz, "Find that girl immediately! She has the evidence against us!" Soon, Fritz met the gang and ordered, "I want that girl at any cost." That night, the gang broke into Dorothy's house. They destroyed everything but couldn't find her. She was hiding behind the neighboring building, watching everything. After they left, she came back home and found her roommate badly injured. She apologized, took her bag out from under the floor, and said, "I won't ever come back here again." At school, Wade's dance competition didn't go well. To cheer him up, Winston dressed up in funny clothes and danced for him at home. But Wade was still upset. He saw a medical file on the table and tried to read it, but Winston quickly snatched it away. Later, Winston threw the file into the dustbin and sadly went out to drink.
Soon, he learned that an event was happening nearby, and Robert, the CEO of BTH, was attending. Winston sneaked into the event and met Robert. He said, "Sir, I've worked for your company for 13 years. I've never troubled anyone, just done my job quietly. But the insurance I got from your company doesn't cover my illness." Robert, pretending to be sympathetic, said, "Don't worry, the company will handle all your expenses." Then he whispered to his assistant, "Take care of him." A man called Winston outside, "Sir, come with me," and slammed the door shut on his face. Inside, Robert and his assistant laughed at him. Angry and humiliated, Winston went to the BTH factory at night. Dorothy was hiding there too. As soon as she saw the gate open for Winston, she ran inside. But the camera alarm went off, alerting Fritz, who immediately summoned the gang. Doherty tried to collect samples, and Winston dipped his broom into the radioactive compound. He threatened the guard, "I'll smear this on your face. You'll die of cancer, you idiot." Then Winston went to the locker room and started filling his bag with cash. While leaving, he bumped into Doherty, and her sample spilled onto Winston's bag. Instantly, all the money caught fire and burned. Soon, the gang arrived and both of them started running. The path ahead was blocked, but Doherty climbed across wires and offered her hand to Winston. But with his short legs, he couldn't run fast. The gang caught up to him. Doherty had no choice but to keep running. The gang surrounded Winston and shot him straight in the face. When Fritz saw that, he shouted in anger, "Destroy all the evidence, now!" They threw Winston's body and his broom into a radioactive pool. When the radioactive material entered his body, he began to mutate. His body grew larger, his skin turned green, and he became a giant monster. Screaming in pain, Winston somehow made it back toward his home. He saw Daisy being forced to sell her house to Spence. He climbed the fire escape to reach his window quietly. Inside, Wade was calling the police because his stepfather had been missing for days. When he suddenly saw a terrifying monster standing at the window, he screamed and threw a flower pot, which accidentally fell onto Spence's car. Spence came outside, heard the alarm, and saw Winston in his monstrous form. Shocked, he began shooting at him, but Winston's wounds healed instantly. Enraged, Winston grabbed his hand and broke it. People nearby started recording videos. Winston quickly ran away, and Daisy took the chance to grab back her property papers from Spence. When the police arrived, the crowd gave all kinds of weird statements. Maybe it was a demon. No, it was a ghost. The police fired into the air to control the crowd, but people were terrified. A mob holding torches started chasing Winston. He escaped into the forest and collapsed unconscious. The next morning, Winston woke up in a small camp in the forest. There was a man there named Guthrie who lived in the jungle. Guthrie wasn't afraid of Winston at all. He even gave Winston back his broom, saying, "Use this carefully, it's dangerous." Meanwhile, back home, Wade was watching TV. He saw that the police were still searching for the monster he had seen the night before, so Wade called the TV station and told them everything. Then we see that some dangerous thugs had broken into a fast food restaurant. They took all the customers and staff hostage. These crazy men were furious only because the restaurant's name had been changed from Mr. Meat to Miss Meat.
When a policeman tried to talk to them, their leader immediately shot him. At that same moment, Winston was quietly returning to the city and saw all the chaos. An old woman shouted at the gang leader and even threw her drink at him. He was about to shoot her when Winston slipped in through the back door and attacked him with his broom, smashing half his face. Everyone was horrified. Then Winston went on a rampage. He killed all the gangsters one by one. He ripped one man's stomach open, tore another apart. It was pure mayhem. After this bloody fight, the hostages were finally freed. When the police arrived, they tried to shoot Winston, but the rescued people stepped forward to protect him. They said, "He's our hero. He saved us." Reporters immediately rushed in with cameras and started asking Winston questions on live TV. On television, Wade recognized the monster's voice. He realized, "That's my stepdad." Spence also saw it on TV and shouted, "That's the same guy who broke my arm." So Spence's father, Thade, sent his goons after Winston, saying, "Find him and kill him. He tore my son's hand off." After this heroic act, everyone started calling Winston a hero. People began taking selfies with him. A little later, when Winston went up to the roof to relieve himself, he discovered that his urine was like acid. It could melt anything in seconds. Now the whole media was buzzing about this green monster. People said maybe BTH's chemicals had turned him into a creature. They started calling him the Toxic Avenger. Meanwhile, Robert was furious again, yelling at Fritz because Doherty had escaped once more, and since she'd sneaked in right after Winston, Robert thought Winston might be helping her. He also hated that the media was linking the green monster to his company's name, spreading negativity everywhere. But when he looked more carefully, Robert realized something. The monster and his janitor were the same person. They both wore the same skirt-style uniform. Robert asked his scientist, "How did this happen?" The scientist explained, "It was an accident. That dwarf had a rare kind of gene that reacted with the radioactive waste, and now he's gained those powers." Robert said eagerly, "I don't care how it happened, I just want that mutation again. I want the same power, but for that, we'll need to capture Winston." Meanwhile, Dorothy used Winston's ID card to locate his home. Wade, seeing his stepdad's ID, let her in. Dorothy told him everything, what had happened that night at the factory. She also revealed that her mother had died because of that same toxic waste. Just then, dangerous goons broke down the door and stormed inside. Dorothy managed to push Wade out through the window just in time, but one of the gangsters secretly attached a tracker chip to Wade's leg so they could trace his location later. Soon on the road, Dorothy and Wade ran into Winston. Winston finally confessed to Wade, "I have cancer." At that very moment, Fade's men arrived and started shooting at him. Dorothy quickly pulled Wade away to safety while Winston fought back fiercely. He killed one of the men with his broom and escaped. In the forest, Wade heard a beeping sound and noticed the tracker. A few minutes later, the Killer Nutz gang arrived. They shot Dorothy and captured Wade.
Winston hid in an old building and checked his wounds. The bullets had come out, but the holes hadn't healed yet. Fade's men were still searching for him, so Winston hid inside a garbage bag and ambushed them. He used one thug as a human shield so that any bullets would hit him instead, then killed another and jumped on top of their car, smashing the driver's head. Later, Winston found Dorothy alive and carried her to Guthrie's camp. Guthrie said, "I used to be a doctor, but now I can't do much." Then Winston poured his own blood into Dorothy's wound, and miraculously, she healed. When she woke up, she said, "I'll fight with you now." Meanwhile, inside the gang's van, Fritz told Wade, "Don't be scared, kid. We just need Winston. You're only bait." Wade got angry. "You think I don't care about my dad? He's the only person in this world who truly loves me." Then he shouted, "Do you have anyone who loves you?" Fritz fell silent. He had no answer. The boy's words cut deep. At the same time, Fade was yelling at Robert over the phone. "That dwarf got his powers because of your company. Who knows what other poisons you're dumping into the rivers?" Robert replied coldly, "Don't worry, sir. Everything is under control." He then saw Fritz arriving with Wade, and a plan began forming in his mind. Soon after, the Killer Nutz gang held a live concert show. Dorothy disconnected their microphone and secretly connected Winston's mic instead. Winston walked into the crowd and started singing their popular song. The audience thought the band had arranged a superhero entry for fun and started cheering loudly. Some girls even threw their precious jewelry toward him. Seeing this, the band's lead singer got angry and fired a gun at Winston. Winston swung his broom and blew half of the man's head off. Everyone panicked and began running. The band members attacked Winston, but he fought back. One fell from the stage and died instantly. Another got sliced through the head. The DJ was electrocuted when Winston smashed the mixer table. Then Winston attacked the guitarist, killed him, and stuffed his beard into his mouth. People stood frozen in horror, realizing maybe their hero was a monster after all. Then Winston shouted and revealed the truth to everyone. "These so-called musicians are all thugs. They work for the BTH company." He exposed all their dirty secrets in front of the public. The last band member tried to run, but Dorothy hit him on the head with a stick. When Winston tore off his mask, he saw a childish face underneath. Still, the thug told him where Wade was being held. Soon after, Winston and Dorothy reached Robert's mansion. Winston removed one of his own eyes and used it to scan the entire area, checking for danger. He saw 2 guards stationed out front. Dorothy, acting bold and flirty, walked up to them to distract them, but both guards got so excited that one accidentally shot the other. Meanwhile, Wade was locked inside a garden shed. He saw Winston arriving and tried to warn him about the danger, but it was already too late. One of Robert's statues suddenly released sleeping gas. Both Winston and Dorothy collapsed before they could react. When they woke up, they found themselves tied up inside a laboratory. The scientists drew Winston's blood and tried to make a serum for Robert, but it didn't work.
Robert angrily ordered, "Keep experimenting until you get it right." Winston had to endure a series of painful tests, and finally, the scientists managed to create a partially successful serum. But before they could warn him of its risks, Robert grabbed the bottle and drank it. Just then, Thade arrived with his men and switched on the news. Winston's rampage at the concert had spread across every media outlet. The mayor immediately announced that she would no longer support BTH. Thade, furious, yelled at Robert, "You've ruined everything! You couldn't even handle this properly!" Robert decided to prove his power. "Then I'll drink the serum and show everyone who's in control." At first, his transformation was mild. He became faster and stronger. Within seconds, he slaughtered Thade and his men in gruesome ways. The narrator jokes, "I can't show you because YouTube doesn't allow gore." When his assistant, Kissy, came closer, Robert's transformation completed. He had turned into a full-fledged monster. Kissy, desperate for power too, drank the few drops left in the bottle. Robert began to feel strange, and the scientist shouted, "The serum isn't stable yet!" But it was too late. Kissy screamed, "Fix him!" Robert, in his rage, ordered his guards, "Kill all the prisoners, even that kid Wade." Fritz overheard this and was shocked. When Kissy looked back at him, he realized that the serum had also affected her, though she was trying to hide it. Even so, Fritz refused to kill Wade. He stopped the guard, saying, "That's not my brother Robert anymore. That's someone else. I don't know that thing." Kissy, enraged, kicked him between the legs and beat him brutally with a metal rod. In the cell, Dorothy overheard that they planned to kill Wade. She encouraged Winston, "Come on, you have to fight." Winston tried his best to break the chains, but couldn't. Then, he suddenly remembered something. His urine was acidic. He told Dorothy, "Ma'am, could you please look away for a second?" Then he quickly unzipped his pants and urinated on the chain. The powerful acid melted it instantly, freeing them both. Dorothy grabbed a computer to collect evidence. Outside, 2 guards were coming. Winston shouted to draw their attention. He killed one with a thrown rock and knocked the other one out with his broom. A third guard fired a bullet, accidentally hitting a gas tank, causing a massive explosion that blew apart the entire shed. Winston was stunned and thought Wade had died in the blast. Then, Robert appeared carrying a deadly axe and attacked Winston. Their weapons clashed. Winston's radioactive broom cut through the axe, but Robert was stronger and managed to overpower him. He struck him repeatedly, nearly killing him, but when the broken piece of the axe hit his neck, he narrowly survived. Winston seized the moment, picked up his broom again, and burned Robert's face with it. Realizing Winston was stronger, Robert tried to escape, but Winston chased him. Meanwhile, Kissy attacked Dorothy, wrapping a chain around her neck. Dorothy struggled, managed to free herself, and fought back fiercely. As Winston and Robert battled nearby, Dorothy struck Kissy's head with a toilet seat, knocking her down. Robert threw Winston to the ground again, ready to kill him, but Dorothy attacked Robert from behind with the toilet seat too. Even then, Robert didn't stop. He swung wildly, piercing a toxic waste tank by mistake.
Winston shattered Robert's axe, punching him over and over until he grabbed Robert by the neck. Just then, Wade appeared, shouting for the first time, "Dad!" It turned out Fritz had secretly saved Wade through a hidden tunnel. Distracted by Wade's voice, Winston hesitated. Robert used the chance to strike again. But Winston retaliated, hurling Robert onto a car, his head crashing into the hood. Dorothy started the engine. It revved loudly and tore Robert into pieces. Afterward, Winston walked toward Wade, but suddenly, someone stabbed him from behind. Fritz tried to intervene, but Kissy slit Fritz's throat. Winston grabbed her, and both of them fell into the radioactive waste tank. A massive explosion followed. Kissy was killed.
Sometime later, Winston woke up in a hospital. The old joint-smoking woman he'd saved earlier was sitting nearby. She turned out to be a secret agent. She turned on the TV, and the news showed that Doherty had leaked the data exposing BTH's crimes. Even the mayor and some police officers were found involved and were arrested. She told Winston, "I've been after BTH for years, but thanks to your help, we finally brought them down. You won't face any charges." Then the doctor entered and said, "The changes in your body have not only saved your life, they've also cured your cancer." When Winston left the hospital, Daisy and a huge crowd were waiting outside to thank him. Wade ran to him and hugged him tightly for the first time, calling him Dad. From a distance, Doherty waved goodbye. And then the narrator's final words appeared. If you liked the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.